We have a great panel that we can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear what they have to share with us. But we also want to be very respectful of your time and get you back to your working day. So my name is Teresa Rose Crook, and I am the Vice Chair of Education for the Oklahoma City Chamber. That's one of my volunteer jobs. My paying job, though, is I am the Executive Director of Communities Foundation of Oklahoma. Today's forum topic is a topic that is very important to me personally, but I believe is also critically important to Oklahoma City, not just today, but into our future. And that is our children. We in this community are very fortunate to have 4 dynamic organizations today that are going to be on our panel and talk to us a little bit about some of the added opportunities that we have for our kids and how these organizations, as well as some of their peer organizations, are helping to build a character-filled, quality group of leaders for our future. But before we get to all of that, we always want to say thank you to our sponsors, because without our sponsors, there's no way that we could have these kinds of forums and share this information with you. So first, please help me welcome and introduce to the stage Ahi Park with Cox Business Communications.
Thank you, Teresa. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome and thank you on behalf of Cox Business. Connecting with our community is an integral part of our company's core beliefs. It is something we act on every day. Through relationships with community organizations, charitable groups, and volunteering our time, Cox employees are making our community a better place. Cox is committed to closing the digital divide in our footprint. Our Connect to Compete program has connected over 450,000 low-income families with children to the internet at a discounted rate, so they are not at a disadvantage when it comes to learning. Cox Charities, which is funded by employee donations and matched by the company, has also contributed more than $5.5 million back into the community through grants for schools and nonprofit organizations, scholarships for students, and support for programs that improve the quality of life in communities where our customers live and work. If your organization could benefit from a Cox grant, or if you assist families that would qualify for Connects to Compete and would like more information, please see me or any other Cox employee after today's program. Thank you and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you, Ahi. I'm also pleased to recognize our corporate sponsor, ADG, and I think we've got a couple of ADG representatives here today. Could you please stand and let us say thank you for your sponsorship? I wholeheartedly believe that a community is only as strong as our next generation. In Oklahoma City, we do have a very strong history of taking civic responsibility around this issue. Decisions by both our City of Oklahoma City as well as Oklahoma City Public School Board have allowed the residents of this community to invest in our kids and invest in our school systems. Not just Oklahoma City Public Schools, but also our surrounding school districts. While this work is ongoing, and I'm referring specifically to Maps for Kids, but there's a lot of other programming and other opportunities that our civic leadership provides, we really need, I think, to take the opportunity to say thank you again to the intentional and impactful and hard work that our superintendent and our school board undertook with the Pathway to Greatness. I don't know how many of you went to any of the forum meetings or read about it in the newspaper or were brave enough to go to any of the school board meetings, but it was hard, it was deliberate, it was necessary. And what I've told the superintendent and many school board members, I've been associated with Oklahoma City Public Schools for about 20 years. And this has been a topic of change for those 20 years. That this group was able to thoughtfully make those decisions and move our school district forward so that our urban inner city kids could have some of the same advantages of the suburban kids was amazing. So I don't know if any of the school board members are in the room, but let's just say thank you one more time to that group. In addition to those brave souls, we also have in our community a number of incredible partners that help add to our students' opportunities and help them grow and become amazing people. Today, we are going to hear from 4 of these organizations as we examine some of the resources that are available to our children. And just as importantly, what more we as a community can do to help our youngest citizens to have a successful life. Now, I am super excited, as I've said about 5 times, to have this conversation and to learn more. But first, we're going to have lunch. And then as we conclude lunch, we're going to get back to our program. So please enjoy the meal, enjoy one another, and learn what we can. Thank you. Please continue your lunch, but we're going to go ahead and bring our guests, our panelists, up to the stage. So please help me welcome, and what I'd like to do is introduce each panelist and ask them to come up to the stage, and then we'll thank them jointly. First, we have Jillian Coker, and she is the Director of All Access Arts Program for Arts Council of Oklahoma City. So you want the stair? Yeah, come on up. There you go. Peter Evans, who is Executive Director of the Oklahoma City Police Athletic League, otherwise known as PALS. Kelly Kay, President and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City. And Dot Rhyne, Development Officer for Fields and Futures. Please help me welcome all the panelists. Okay, are y'all all mic'd up and ready?
I think so.
Okay. So we have some questions, and some of them are going to be collective, and then some of them are going to be individual questions. So this is for all the panelists. Tell us a little bit about your organization and the way that it interacts with children. Just maybe a couple of minutes for each. Okay, so we'll start with Dot.
Good luck with that.
Okay, yeah.
Am I on? Okay, great. So Fields and Futures was created in 2012, founded by Liz and Tim McLaughlin, with a singular focus and purpose, mission, and that is to rebuild and maintain athletic facilities for Oklahoma City Public Schools. So it was designed for the one school district. The bigger story arc is graduation completion. There's a driving belief by the McLaughlins and an army of other people that sports and arts and music and all of the extracurricular programs out there for kids, but a proven motivator to get a child to school. So sports is proven throughout history to help get a kid to school, and once they're at school and they want to be on that team and stay on that team, they will work harder to get there so attendance improves. They'll work harder to stay eligible so grades improve. They'll work harder not to get in trouble so the coach won't bench them. And then all of a sudden, they have something to belong to. They come out of the cracks, so these invisible children become visible. And now they have a caring, committed coach and a system and a structure to prop them up, help them find some confidence, help them understand there's a world out there of opportunity and possibility, and they have the structure of that team, and that team in so many instances becomes their family. So we say we build fields, we build and maintain fields, but we're trying to build children. We're trying to build great future employees and future citizens of Oklahoma City and our state by empowering them and helping them find that sense of confidence and belief that they can be and do whatever they choose. And it just so happens our path is sports. So we tell people all the time, we know sports does not solve world peace, but you know what? It's making a huge difference in Oklahoma City.
Amen. And I laugh and tell people often that I so appreciate what each of you do and what you were just saying, that I didn't make good grades to get into college and get scholarships because I liked learning. I made good grades because it's what was required for me to get to go do whatever it is that I wanted to do. So great carrot, great carrot. Kelly, tell us about the YMCA.
You bet. Well, thank you. Well, very, very similarly, but obviously with a much broader mission and a lot of different activities. But yeah, the Y is really focused on developing the whole child and providing kids a place to feel safe and to make friends and be themselves, and help with academic achievement and learning new skills, character development, leadership development, strengthening family relationships, really just ultimately providing kids with the things that they need to learn, grow, and thrive. And we do that through a variety of programs. Some of our main focus areas and programs, our core programs, obviously are child care. We have 15 before and after school sites around the community, as well as our Child Development Center at the Downtown Y. Of course, it's summertime, so we have 33 summer day camps running all over the metro right now as we speak. And of course, our jewel down in the Arbuckle Mountains, Camp Classen, that hosts kids all summer long, as well as our outdoor education program during the school year. And then we do a lot of family campouts and parent-child campouts, but it's 2,300 beautiful acres of fishing and horseback riding and hiking and all kinds of activities for kids. Our aquatics programs, many are familiar with, but we have about 16,000 kids each year in our swim lesson programs. We also have a wonderful program that we do called Safety Around Water with Oklahoma City Public Schools and some of the other districts around the metro area, where we bring kids into the Y during the school day and teach them a curriculum around water safety, really just to help them to be safe around the water. So many of our children live in apartment complexes with unguarded pools, or they go to the lake with their family. And so just to really teach them those skills, how to be safe around the water and protect it, or to look out for their friends and family as well. Of course, sports are our largest program as well. We have about 27,000 kids in our youth sports programs. That's a variety of individual and team sports, traditional, non-traditional, really focusing on the development of the child. And then our teen leadership area as well, with our youth and government, our Y Achievers program, leaders clubs, and our Y Corps. So lots going on for kids, especially in the summertime.
Amen. Peter, tell us a little bit about PALS.
Sure. The Oklahoma City Police Athletic League was founded here in 1992, but the Police Athletic League nationally has more than 100 years of history. It started in 1915 in New York City. Even though we are a national organization, there is no national model. So every PAL chapter in every city across the country kind of does their own thing based on what they feel is best for their kids and their community. From 1992 to 2012, we did a little bit of everything. We offered camps, we offered leagues, we offered sports programs, we offered recreational programs. We tried a little bit of everything, and it was great. Our main objective at that time was to just get kids active, give them some opportunities to participate in something, and keep them going when they were not as busy as they should be. Excuse me. In 2013, our organization decided to refocus where we served, and we strategically targeted OKCPS. We wanted to serve the kids in our school district, in the largest school district in the state. So we started tailoring our programs to OKCPS, and then in conversation with the school district around 2015, we were talking with Fields and Futures about why participation in certain programs were so low, and they identified a few needs, one of which was poor facilities. Fields and Futures checked that box. Another was lack of equipment. Another partner of ours, Cleats for Kids, checked that box. And then our kids just didn't have the opportunity to participate somewhere. So there was no feeder pattern, nothing to get kids engaged in sports at a young age. And so we had the opportunity to come in and fill that void. So in 2015, we began our OKCPS elementary athletics, 5th and 6th grade athletics, and over the last 4 years, that has become our largest program. We've been able to provide that program to 48 elementary schools in the district, 3,500 elementary 5th and 6th grade students playing football, volleyball, basketball, soccer, cheerleading, but we have modeled that program around the district's middle school and athletic programs. So we're trying to instill within our kids an interest of playing earlier so they play longer. And that just feeds right into the story that Dot was telling. If they're engaged in something, they have reason to keep their grades up, they have reason to follow whatever standards we set, and ideally they're graduating at a higher rate. So that's been our largest program and really what we've specialized in over the last 4 years.
Outstanding. Jill, tell us about Arts Council.
So Arts Council Oklahoma City's mission is to bring the arts and the community together. And the kids are just as much a part of our community as adults. So we include kids in every part of what we're doing with our major events, which is probably how you most know us, Festival of the Arts, Opening Night, the Twilight Concert Series. All of those things are family friendly, have kids in mind. In every aspect of it, we ask, is this going to make parents uncomfortable? Is this going to be good for kids running around? So Twilight Concert Series happening now, family friendly. And then we also have programs. So my program called All Access Arts is for people in our community who have low access to arts for any number of reasons. That can be because of where you live in the city, it can be because of the school that you go to, it can be because you live in a senior center and you can't get out to an art class. Any reason, we try to look for where is that reason, what's happening, how can we go in and provide a program that makes sense. So one of the big things about All Access Arts is we follow the need. Where is the need in Oklahoma City? And unfortunately right now, the need's with our kids, especially our younger kids. So our biggest initiative in All Access Arts is called Arts in Schools. We serve about 8,000 Oklahoma City kids every year. That's through public schools with teaching artists. That's through some of our charter schools who haven't developed their own arts curriculum yet. That's through partnerships with the libraries and the Parks and Rec Center. So both us going in and forming our own partnerships with the schools and then working with our community partners like the library to build bigger partnerships so we can reach more kids. So Arts Council is always looking for how do we serve the kids, downtown and just coming with their parents to festival, but also how do we reach those kids that can't get to that or don't have the art teacher in their classroom, who aren't getting this in their life daily.
Outstanding, thank you. So our next question is for Peter. Your organization is unique in that it builds positive relationships between kids and police officers. What kind of impact has that had on our community, whether it be in the lives of individual children, in schools, or in neighborhoods?
Sure. That's obviously a large part of what we do, being the Police Athletic League. As Dot mentioned, sports, our programming is the carrot. That's just the tool we use to get kids to sign up. Because I as much as I want to believe this, it might not be the case. If we just said, who wants to show up for a character program and hang out with police officers and stay after school and show up early on Saturdays? Who wants to
Come flooding in, right?
And they'd bring their cousins and their parents and everyone else along with them. And so we know that wouldn't happen, but we do want to build that relationship between our kids and our police officers to change the narrative around the way they see those officers. And we've been able to do that. And the majority of the credit there goes to Chief Bill City. Let's keep that straight. He saw the need for that long before there was a real need for that. And that also goes back to the history of PAL. In 1915, there was a police officer in New York City who said, we needed a program that offered a place for kids to play and offered a way for kids to build better relationships with cops. And so that's been the narrative all along. But Chief City really invested in the police community relations side long before we really knew we needed it. But we have seen it change the narrative. And we've seen it change the narrative on both sides. We want to change a relationship between police officers and our youth. That requires us, it works best when both sides change their opinion. And so our police officers are changing, our kids are changing their opinions of police officers. Now when a police officer shows up in a car or a uniform to their school, they're not saying, who are they here to arrest, who's in trouble. Majority of our kids are saying, I want to be in whatever program that person's bringing into my school. And so we've been able to build a great relationship with our kids in our schools, building up some of that trust so our kids know that they can rely on those police officers. But we've also seen it with our parents. We've seen plenty of parents who are willing to walk into our center and sit down across from a police officer and talk about what's in the best interest of their kids because they know that's why we're there. And so that's ultimately what we're trying to go for. We use the sport as the carrot there, like I said, but we get to do that with our police officers. And then additionally, we get to do that with a lot of our teachers and just our many community members. Over the course of this year, we had approximately 450 volunteer coaches. The majority of those, I'd say 70% of those, were teachers. And our teachers are staying after school and showing up on Saturdays to do this extra work at no extra pay because they're realizing that when they change that relationship with the kids, the way the kids interact in the classroom is completely different. If they walk in and say, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, they'll act a certain way, but if they walk into your classroom and say, hi, coach, it's completely different. And so we're working to change that narrative everywhere. It's just really special when we get to do it with police officers too.
That's fantastic. And, Oklahoma City, we have been spared some of the tensions that other cities have had with their law enforcement communities. And so, not saying that PALS is completely responsible for that, but I can't help but think that the programming and the relationships that you all have built is a contributing factor. So thank you.
I hope so.
Kelly, while the YMCA is mostly associated with the physical activity and wellness, your youth programming also includes a heavy emphasis on leadership development and college readiness for teens. Give us more insight into those programs. What kinds of needs are they meeting in Oklahoma City, and how have they been successful in shaping our teens?
Yes, well, yes, we serve a lot of teens each year as well, and teens participate in all of our programs, but we do have some programs specifically focused on their development, really focusing again on the whole child. The first program I'd like to talk about is our Youth and Government program, which just celebrated its 68th year. But kids have an opportunity statewide. It's actually a statewide program. We work with 35 different school districts around the state. The kids actually get to come in and take over the state capitol for a weekend in the spring each year. But they work all year long in their clubs, and there's 3 sections that they can participate in, learn more about how our government works and those kind of things, but also to learn more about themselves and what they believe in, how to formulate their beliefs and how to share those, and at the same time respect the beliefs and opinions of those around them. And but they, the legislative section, they write bills just like our legislators do, and they debate those bills in committees and out on the House and Senate floor. We have a judicial section where they receive a mock trial case at the beginning of the school year. They have to prepare all year long, working with local attorneys that help them to prepare that case and be able to argue both sides of that case. And then we also have a media section where there's a broadcast media as well as a print media where they report on the activities that are happening at the Capitol, just like happens when you watch the news every night. But just a wonderful program to see the kids who come into that program as a freshman and aren't really sure about what's happening. And then because all of the leadership, the youth governor, the Speaker of the House, everyone is a youth participant in the program, that they lead it, and we have adult advisors that are really just there to help. So to watch them grow and develop in that program. Another program that we do is our Y Achievers program that we do in 6 of the Oklahoma City public schools, high schools. Again, this wonderful program, it's a college readiness career exploration program that really is throughout their program. Actually, our sponsor today, Cox, is a wonderful partner with that program, and Anthony actually participates as one of our mentors in that program, so it was great catching up with him again today. But it's a wonderful program where their freshman year, we actually work with companies all around the community. They provide mentors, employees that come in, work with a small group in the classroom, and really that freshman year is all about, you're in high school now, let's really start thinking about making that commitment to continue our education beyond high school and the things that we need to do right now to learn about ourselves as well as to prepare ourselves for that. And whether that's college education or military, trade school, VOTEC, those kind of things. But it's just a wonderful program. Sophomore year, we actually take them to college campuses. We focus on a leadership curriculum, but they eat in the cafeteria, they visit a dorm room, they sit in a classroom, they interact with college students just to see what life is like on a college campus that they probably haven't been able to experience before and don't really know what that means. Their junior year, we work with a lot of companies where we actually take the kids into those companies on weekends throughout the school year. They learn about all the different career paths that they're not even aware in their neighborhoods or what they see on TV that those even exist. And so just a wonderful program. Then of course their senior year is really focused around college applications and scholarship applications and all of those kind of things that they need to do to be prepared for that first year of college. So a wonderful program. We also run leaders clubs throughout. It's a new program we just started in all of our branches around the community to develop leadership skills in kids, make friends. They work on local projects. And then our Y-Core group is a group that takes service learning trips. We actually had a group that just got back from Memphis where they had an opportunity to volunteer with some nonprofits in the Memphis area to experience that culture of that city and some of the history of that city. It's just a wonderful opportunity for them to go and immerse themselves into a new community, but they also do a lot of service projects while they're there. So,
I want to go join the Y.
No kidding.
Really
I want to be a
fun.
kid
Okay.
again.
Never too late. All right.
Dot.
Okay.
Fields and Futures was created with the idea that better athletic fields will put students on a better path to graduation. How has increasing access to athletics impacted the schools in Oklahoma City? And what kind of changes have you seen at the campuses that have received new or improved fields?
We love that question. It is amazing how a new field, or in most cases, the world we live in, a complex, because we'll go into a school campus and redo all the fields at one time. Talk about a rising tide that lifts all boats. I mean, you can see these children. Well, let me just put this plug in. fieldsandfutures.org, YouTube Fields and Futures. We have this growing mountainous list of awesome videos because we've had great sponsors that have helped us tell our stories and capture a lot of this. But we have a young girl from Roosevelt Middle School when we rebuilt that campus in 2016, thanks to Edmond North Balto and their very generous support. So that was pretty awesome to see Edmond North kids come rebuild a campus for Roosevelt Middle School. That was amazing. But we had a Roosevelt Middle School student. She's just as sweet as she can be, so she wasn't saying this in any, she just said it. It's like, why would anybody come help us? We're like the worst school there is. Well, we cry every time we watch that video, and we've seen it like 100 times, but that's just what they believed. So when they see complete strangers, and most of them they'll never meet, but when they see the bulldozers move in, and they see the Cimarron crew, and they see the Edmond North kids coming, or whoever the supporters are of that project, they walk taller, they smile bigger. It's like this renewed sense of we matter. And instead of feeling like we're the worst school there is, they're like, we have the prettiest campus around. And all of a sudden, it just opens up this gateway. So for the first time in decades, literally decades, parents can come watch a child practice or play at their school. So just think about that. If you grew up playing sports, chances are your parents could easily get to you. Well, not so much in this case. When you have households with single parents or parents working 2 and 3 jobs, it's hard enough to get to an after-school activity. But when your kid is being bussed off somewhere else to play that game, yeah, good luck, not going to happen. So all of a sudden, here comes the neighborhood back. Well, to Peter's point, everybody could claim this, I'm sure. All of a sudden, there's a parent on the campus. So teachers and principals are like, yippee skippy. It's like, I've been wanting to meet that mom or dad, but in some of the cultures inside the district, they're not comfortable going on campus. They may have grown up in a world that said, don't bother the teacher. And we live in a world where it's like, no, we want parents in, but they have to learn that, so you have to get them there. So you've got the parent involvement, you've got the pride in the campus. And if you haven't seen one of these, please just pick one and go drive by. The difference is startling. But then, and Sarah, thank you, and as much has been a great supporter. I mean, we've had this conversation before. It really, all of a sudden you're talking about neighborhood revitalization. So I have yet to find a realtor and have a conversation about how has this lifted home values around these campuses, but how could it not? Because each school campus is big enough, in a way it's like a park. So at Roosevelt Middle School, we rebuilt it. It's our little Taj Mahal of middle schools. It was beautiful. All of a sudden they're doing a family film night. So the field isn't just for sports. I mean, the field is a resource and an asset. They did their first ever pep rally. They didn't know what it was. So the Edmond North kids came in and thought, we're going to do a pep rally. And the Roosevelt kids were like, we don't know what that is. So they're outside sitting on their hands, and everybody's going, ah, and they're like, they had this look on their face like, is this a sting operation of some sort? And finally, the principal's like trying to explain to them, no, it's okay if you're loud. And they finally caught on. So when they did their next one, they knew what they were doing. So Mr. Cooper knows. I mean, it's amazing what happens, right? Okay.
They danced off against each other, and a couple of us teachers program took.
See, teachers got it. They got it. So I think that's the big point. It becomes a resource and an asset. Neighborhood, community, city. So a few years ago, we were introducing a large gift, a new donor to Fields and Futures, had a luncheon, and told the audience, this has moved way beyond a Fields and Future story. It's a city story. These are everybody's kids. They're our future workforce. You know, everything everybody's doing is to engage and empower and build the confidence of these kids. So the collateral benefit's amazing.
Amen. Love it. Thank you. Jill, your organization represents an equally important way to build self-esteem and creative expression in kids and teens. And that's through access to visual and performing arts experiences. Why do arts play such an important role in childhood development, and how are your services meeting the underserved communities? Now, you talked a little bit in your intro about those underserved communities, but talk a little bit deeper about how you identify and serve those.
Sure, yeah. Self-confidence and self-expression are just a few of the benefits you get when kids are involved in our programs. And I'm so happy to be up here with sports because we really are fighting the same fight. We want well-rounded, happy kids in our community ready to go into the workforce. So self-confidence in the arts can be built by a couple different things. You're learning new skill sets that are both specific to that art form, no matter what it is, and you're also learning skill sets that you can transfer to, pretty much everything else you're doing in life. You're learning persistence. I was a music major. You spend grueling hours in a practice room. You learn how to be in there and do it. You learn how to accept criticism and praise. You learn teamwork, the same with sports. You learn to have a community together and how to be a part of something bigger. All things that you can take with you in everything that you do in life. In addition to that, there's so much research on the correlation between test scores and attendance between those kids involved in art programs and those kids are not. And I should clarify, whenever we talk at the Arts Council about kids being involved in our art programs, we don't mean just for the kids who want to become a musician or want to become a painter. It's for everyone. We think the arts are just a basic part of your education. In addition to all of the data and statistics and research that we love on test scores and attendance, there's also kind of the fuzzier stuff of just, it makes kids happier at school. It gives them a group of people to hang out with, whether that's sports that they're involved with or whether that's arts. When you're in band or orchestra, you have a community of kids that are with you, making school something that you want to go to. And therefore you go more often, you're more confident there, and you're doing better. And with self-expression, with the arts, whatever art you're doing, it's your voice that's being heard. So you're learning what your voice is, how do you use it in a different way, and getting to hear other people's voices in whatever art form you're doing. So just going back to that community and all of the benefits that come with that. With underserved kids specifically, that's mainly what we focus on with All Access Arts. Everything we do at the Arts Council is data-driven. When we go into a new school, we research what are the art programs there. We don't want to duplicate services. We want to go for those gaps. We look at how many art teachers are there, what kind of art supplies do they have there. And then I think it's really important when you work with underserved communities, not just to create a package and then say, here you go, now fit this into your school program. But it's so important to work with the school, ask them, make it a conversation. What do you need? What do you want? What do your parents want? What do your kids want? And that way you can be so much more successful in connecting the kids with the arts and therefore connecting them with their school and community.
So I've got one more question. It's a question for all the panelists, but wanted to go ahead and just tell you, the audience, that we are going to have a few minutes for questions. So if you've been thinking about something, or start thinking about a question that you have for the panelists, and we're going to have a few minutes reserved at the end to try to get you an answer. So as I said, this is a question for all the panelists, and it's a little long and it's a little deep, so bear with me. It's clear that each of your organizations are doing great work in Oklahoma City, but there is still so much more to be done to improve the quality of life for our children. What's the most important and pressing need of children that still needs to be met in our community? And if you had a magic wand and could immediately meet that need, how would you do it? And I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Who wants to go first? Okay.
I'll go.
I'll jump in. I wanted to piggyback on something you said. I don't know that I have the magic wand answer. We were discussing that ahead of time. But Dot mentioned something about the community wrapping around kids, and that's what we need. That's what we need more of, and that's what we will never get enough of. I'm sure that all of our organizations and many others in the room would love your additional donation and your additional volunteer time. We know that about nonprofits. That's what we do. That's your time and your treasure, but we often overlook your talent. What are you good at? What motivates you? What do you enjoy? Come share that with our organizations. Come share that with our kids, because our kids need to find more carrots like that, whether that's arts or dance or reading or whatever it is. Come just be around, be that support system. Show up to a game on a Saturday. Just show them that people in the community care. So many of our kids, for whatever reason, for so long, believed that the community didn't actually, there was no buy-in from the community on whether or not they failed or succeeded. And so when we've started to reinvest in the schools and we make things look bigger and better and brighter, they start to believe that people actually care about us, and they respond. They absolutely respond. We've seen kids in our program go from D students to A students just because people show up. We've seen grades improve without ever cracking a book with anybody, just because we're constantly showing up, and the kids know that when I get here on Monday, I'm going to ask you about your grades because I care, because I'm here. So there are ways that you can get involved with our organizations or with organizations all across the city that go beyond your donation and just your pure volunteer time. And I would encourage you to ask us about that. Come tell us what you're interested in. Come tell us what you want to do. I know it's this way for our organization. I assume it's the same elsewhere. If what you want to do is not a good fit for us, I would love to introduce you to Kelly or to Dot or Jane. Absolutely. Well, let's connect and let's get you plugged in because our kids just need a bigger support system.
Outstanding.
Yep.
Yay.
Totally agree. Dot.
Okay.
You were trying to
Yes.
volunteer.
I have a two-part answer. In direct response to the question, the need that still needs to be met. I think it's happening, but in our world and from a lot of point of views, it just can't happen fast enough. And it's about access. So it's giving kids access to safe places to play, well-organized programs, take the cost factor out as much as possible, which requires financial support from the corporate community, individuals, wherever it comes from. But give them access, because access creates opportunity, and opportunity creates exposure. So one of the interesting comments that came out of that Roosevelt-Edmund North relationship, too, is we were talking to Principal Clark at the time, and he said, yeah, I would love for the Edmund North kids to come visit our kids, and I would love to send some of our kids up to Edmund, but just keep in mind, a lot of these children have never left their zip code. So 20 miles north is like 3 states away. And that was just like, whoa, it's like you don't stop and think about that until somebody makes that kind of statement. And then the other thing he said, I'll just toss this in here because we loved him. We still love him. But he said, I just want to make sure that the Edmond kids understand they can learn from us too. So this is not just about sending our kids to Edmond to learn what happens in their world. I want to make sure that they respect these children and understand that they may not have the household income, they may not have the same resources, but they have language and they have experience and they have perspective and they have other things of value to provide outside of their circle. So I thought that was really important. So I would say access, opportunity, that creates exposure. I'm just going to put this out there for whoever, I'm sure this whole room is following it, but in the Maps for Opportunity, and I haven't seen all the detail. I know that the list was published of the meetings that are going to happen, but the parks work that needs to happen, right? To create more access, to make sure that at that hyper-local neighborhood level, kids can get to a safe place to play. So the more assets we have, Boys and Girls Club can expand, YMCA can expand. We just need these facilities around the community to create access that creates opportunity. The second thing I want to touch on that Jill started, Peter mentioned it, but one of the, I'll try to make this short. The emotional learning for these children through programs is humbling. It just feels very personal. But when Peter was talking about PAL and volunteer coaches, so Liz McLaughlin, co-founder of Fields and Futures, she and 2 of her boys, or 3 of them, they all coach PAL teams. It's really fun. But their first year doing it, it was just like this exposure and awareness to kids who do not know how to deal with their emotions. So they're just out there trying to teach them how to make a point, move a ball. Of course, they're having to teach all the game fundamentals. But these kids, Liz, because I just heard the stories from Tim, that it's like they would get so upset they didn't know how to handle that emotion. They just throw the ball down, go bench themselves and say, I'm out. Or tears, crocodile tears, because they just didn't know how to deal. So when you think about sports and organized programs and structured environments and caring supervision, and I love the idea of expression. You know, I'm a huge music believer. And I was talking to JB one day, our local hip hop royalty, and it's like, oh my God, teach kids how to get their thoughts and their feelings out in some form. It's amazing how therapeutic that is for kids. So if it's on a football field, we have an amazing story. Find the video. It's called Jeremy Allen. And he has anger issues. He still has them. He had them in the 7th grade. He was suspended 28 times. He missed 100 days of school, however that's even possible. He made a conscious decision, I'm going to be a better kid. Sports has kept him on the right path. But he will tell you that when he is on that field, he's a captain of his team. He's got a 4.1 GPA now. He's a rising senior at Grant. He's like our poster child. But he said, I need that release. So kids need these opportunities so not only can they learn, but they can learn how to deal with life. So I just want to say, I think we need more higher achiever programs. Because one of the things I worry about a little bit is these children hear about all this stuff. So now they're encouraged, like intentionally encouraged to sign up for Oklahoma's Promise. Do they really even know what college means? If they're the first in their family to graduate high school, they've never been on a campus. That must be the most intimidating idea, much less process. So I don't know how many kids are in that program, but we need every Oklahoma City kid at a certain age to have exposure to that kind of coaching and counseling and encouragement. So there you go.
Accents.
Yay. I'll find one. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
I just feel a little bit strongly about certain things. Okay.
Well, I think part of the point that all of you are making is these aren't somebody else's kids. These are our kids. Every person in this room has some sense of ownership and responsibility for every child in our community. Jill, Kelly, who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Although I don't want to follow that. I don't know why I said I'd go next. Gosh.
I went before Dot.
Well, I agree that Oklahoma City is going in the right direction. I've worked with Arts Council for 3 years, and the changes just in that short amount of time are amazing. Between our mayor and our new superintendent, who are fighting for our kids, we're doing some really, really awesome things. I still think that we need to strive for an equitable education for every single kid. It does not matter where the school is, what part of the city, how many kids are there. And with Pathways to Greatness, we are definitely on that path, but we've got a ways to go. So, if I had a magic wand, obviously, first little swipe would be just the basics. Every school is updated. We already have amazing teachers. We don't need to update that. We could use a few more, but they're awesome. Supplies, books. No one should be sharing books or having a book from 10 years ago. So the basics, and then above that, to make ourselves a competitive school district, I'd love to see a menu of options for principals to pick extracurricular programs that match their diverse school environment. I get to go to a lot of different schools in Oklahoma City, and they're their own little families. It's awesome what they like to do, the way they like to celebrate, the activities they like to be in, the challenges those families face. They're all unique to that school and that community surrounding that school. So more diversity in programs, listening to what they want and celebrating those different things that they want.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Kelly, finish us up.
I'll bring it home. Try. That's hard to follow, all three of you, because I think it's all been said, but I just think that is, everything that they've said is really the key. And, it's just so important. If I had a magic wand, and we'll pretend for a second that I do, but I think it's exactly what you said. I think my magic wand swipe would be that every adult's primary focus is on the safety, well-being, and education of our children. Because those of us in this room, we're passing the torch. It's here. So, and those are all our kids. And I think, if we just, because it really comes down to opportunities and resources, like you guys have said. We have, the kids have the capacity. They truly do. And if we really focused on those three things for our kids, they have the ability to create, to become the change makers that create the kind of communities we want to live in, the kind of community that we all want to live in. And we just need those opportunities for programs for them to be exposed to positive adult role models that are really, truly focused on their development and their encouragement and really inspiring hope in them for their future. And so it really comes down to those opportunities, and then the resources, the human resources, whether it's motivated youth workers or volunteers or partnerships. I really commend the Chamber for even bringing this topic, because I just think it really speaks to the things that we need to do as a community as we think about the kids and how we develop them. But so human resources through partnerships and all the things that we've talked about, the capital resources, like you said, so everybody has a place. Every child has a place, whether, that's the Boys and Girls Club or the Y or an after-school program where it's their place where they can be themselves and feel safe and learn more about themselves and who they want to become. And then the financial resources, obviously, that we've talked about, just to truly be able to make sure that their basic needs are met, but also that they have those enrichment opportunities as well. So I just think, the kids are just there. They're ready to learn and grow and thrive, and we just need to make that our focus. So.
And I want to give each of you a magic wand. So thank you both, all four, so much for your responses. Questions. I think we've got about 10 minutes. Questions from the crowd. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Great job, panel and moderator. Question about mental health. And one of the things I was thinking about during this whole discussion is the relative ease of assessing academic performance achievement before and after the intervention of your programs, right? It's relatively easy to pull grades and say before and after, what kind of impact does this have? And when it comes to emotional health, whether it be anxiety, depression, resiliency, emotional intelligence, and soft skills we talked before, it's in my mind much harder to capture those things, but in many cases those things are just as important. And so anecdotes and case studies are oftentimes really compelling and help us understand how it all looks, but what work, is it important? I'm just kind of curious if you can comment on mental health. Is that something that y'all are able to capture information about and then demonstrate kind of the impact of your programs? Because I think intuitively we'll all know that there is that impact. Is it possible to capture that information and to tell that story? Thanks.
And so I'm going to let each of y'all respond based on what you've worked with in your organizations. And then I'll share at the conclusion a project that the Chamber through the Oklahoma City Compact has been working on. So, yeah. Anybody?
I'll jump in. I think that is a major focus, especially with an organization like the Y, mental health and kids and families and just the things that our staff interact with. And, I think another important part of our mission that we really didn't talk about today, but we have about 1,000 kids that are working in our programs, teaching swim lessons, working in after school and summer camps and things like that. And so the trainings and the things that we're doing as a community around the ACE scores, because the reality is these kids that are working with the kids that we're talking about today, they all have ACE scores and they've been through those adverse childhood experiences. So really helping them through that and then training them on how to better interact with those kids when they do, because there was probably a time when a child like that, we would just kick them out of the program. But through our different partnerships and through Palomar, we now have a partnership where all of our summer camp counselors receive the trust-based relational intervention training. And that's just been a complete game changer for our staff and how they interact with these kids and really embracing them, meeting them right where they're at, and then helping them through those situations without it really, escalating to the point that we need to remove them from the program. So I think there are so many opportunities, whether it's, sports or any of our programs, because I think, the mental health is a major issue for our state, as we all know. And so, yes, so many wonderful adult programs, but if we can really focus on those kids, we can really change society.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can touch on this really quick. 2 ways. One, Built-in Futures last year started a luncheon series called Bases Loaded. Last year we did a survey of female student athletes at Roosevelt Middle School and talked about the impact of new fields, new opportunities. And so it's like soft information, but we're just like, oh my God, this is fabulous. It's like they said everything we prayed and hoped they would say, but it comes down to how they deal with peer pressure, relationships, etc. And so again, any structured environment helps provide that. The other thing is understanding, and it's talking about the adults in their lives again. We learned early on that yes, these kids need love. And I end every presentation I make these days with the one truth we know is love wins every time. Unconditional love, transformative love, encouraging love, tough love, but love wins these kids over. Coaches need love too, and coaches are educators in this system. If they coach, they teach. So it's helping them know what's available. So in one of our earlier years, when we started producing coaches clinics to help with professional development for coaches, Kathy Brown, the district homeless coordinator, came in and introduced herself, and it was shocking how many teachers/coaches did not know the district had a homeless coordinator. And she told them, these are my kids. This is why I have a job. So if you spot a child that you think for any reason doesn't have a stable environment, is sleeping on couches, doesn't have the right uniform, is wearing the same clothes day after day, call me. Those are my kids. So it's making the resources available, it's educating people about them. Second bases loaded thing we just finished, and some of you were there a couple months ago. Mr. Cooper was there. It was called Mind, Body, Soul. So this time we did a survey of 193 male and female student athletes at Northwest Classen High School, and we compared their results to the national studies about sleep time, screen time, nutrition, all those things that impact the way kids feel and act. And again, it was a little tougher with high school kids. I mean, some of their answers were like, oh, okay. But for the most part, it was good. All the averages are better for kids who have structure. So I would just say it just validates if they can get in a structured program, all of those mental health benefits, not the severe ones, not the ones teachers and schools can't manage, but the others improve.
Peter, did you have something?
We obviously need more mental health resources. Kind of like I touched on with the programs with police officers. If we just said who wants to sign up for a mental health program, people probably wouldn't sign up. So we need to get the resources to the programs that have the carrots. We need to get the resources to the programs who are building the relationships with the kids, because you can have all the assessments you want, but if kids don't trust the place they are, they're not going to answer that assessment honestly. Our kids know how to, they know what answer you're looking for sometimes. And sometimes the right answer and the truthful answer aren't always the same. So we need to put them into that space where they trust who they're working with, they feel safe, they feel comfortable, so they can answer those questions honestly. And then utilize programs like these as early identifiers. Because we have the coaches who are building relationships with the kids, and it never fails. At the end of every season, the majority of our coaches will approach us and say, hey, I have this one kid or these two kids who've just shown some additional signs that they might need some extra attention. And that's when we have the opportunity to say, here's a resource, let's go here, let's take them here, let's look at this thing. And we don't have that down well yet, but we need more of those resources available. So when our coaches do identify that early need, we can get them there 9, 10 years old.
Jill, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question to ask right now, because I think we're finally at a time where we can actually answer that or start to answer it. Last year, OKCPS got quite a bit of title funding for mental health, and I know that they had to do some pretty extensive research, both on what the teachers thought, what parents thought, and then how the kids felt. And I've just seen a little bit of that report, but it was pretty shocking to hear how our kids are doing. So we're finally at the point that we're going to have a counselor at every school. It's not enough, but it's something. And then we have bigger programs that have been consistent, because it's hard to study how our programs are affecting the kids if we're in and out a lot. So consistency with the kids is so important. And then with Arts Council, we dabble in that a little bit. We definitely should do more. We have a program called Art Shaping Character, where our amazing teaching artist, Paul Medina, goes into schools and teaches kids who have had some kind of trauma in their life. And I mean, it's just so cool to watch these kids. It's not a cheesy environment, which I think it can so often be when you're telling a kid, have empathy or develop this or no bullying. But it really is just an open discussion. And then the kids do some art and they feel really good about it. So we do a little bit with that, and then at our end of the year surveys, we try to ask some of those questions about, do you feel comfortable doing this? Do you feel proud doing this? So we're starting that, but definitely a long way to go. So important.
So and I'll try to make this really quick. The Oklahoma City Chamber is part of a group of 5 entities that make up what's called the Oklahoma City Compact. And it's essentially the city, the chamber, United Way of Central Oklahoma, the Public Schools Foundation, and of course, Oklahoma City Public Schools. And the purpose of that group is to bring resources and support to the school district that they otherwise couldn't do or provide on their own. We've done a couple of different initiatives, and it's always at the request of the district. About a year and a half ago, the district came to the compact and said, we need mental health support. It is the single biggest obstacle to learning for our children district-wide. So the first thing that we did was, we did two things simultaneously. First, we took an inventory of the programs that are doing great work, but where they were. What schools were adopted by a church and had boys and girls clubs, or what other kind of programming that they had for their student population. Simultaneously, we partnered with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services because they semi-annually do a survey, and they do this throughout the state, of students with their mental health needs. So the district worked with the Department of Mental Health. We expanded that survey, included a number, we about doubled it. It's all based on a scientific, research-based survey questions that goes through this big mix master of analytics and all this. So the validity, it's a highly valid survey. A few of us, the chamber pitched in, the Department of Mental Health pitched in, the district pitched in to pay for this survey, and we surveyed every 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grader in the district. The purpose of that was to get more longitudinal down into the feeder pattern. So based on what a 6th and 8th grader, if we get some consistency, we know how to predict what's going on in those feeder elementaries. To whoever said this, I think it was Jill, a little bit shocking, probably not surprising. And I'll get into the results here in just a second. But what that gave us was it told us specifically and by feeder pattern the needs of those students. It told us, for example, the South Side students participate in alcohol at a much higher rate than North Side students. North Side students participate in other types of drugs. Okay? It gave us some of those kind of specifics. From there, we identified specific programming, treatment, intervention, and prevention programs that we are working to deploy in each school moving forward in the fall. Now, we didn't just wait a year to get any of this started. We started last year with a couple of things, training teachers on trauma-informed response kind of instruction and how they can do that in their classroom, and also initiated a program with Oklahoma City with the police department, where if there is an overnight call and Dot is a kid that's standing in the middle of this domestic violence situation, all the police officer has to do is text a number at the school district and say, Dot was involved in an incident. The principal at that school knows to watch Dot. The principal tells the teacher, if Dot has her head on her desk, give her a minute, okay? So we've already started those programs. What was interesting about the survey results, I'll tell you a couple of quick things and then we'll go. Terry White, the Commissioner of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, explains that in most districts that you have a triangle of need, with the smallest percentage of your students needing the highest intervention. So they need true intervention and counseling. Then you need some medium intervention, and then just prevention. Oklahoma City Public School students, that triangle is inverted. We have the highest number of our students that are in critical need now of counseling and intervention. 1 out of every 3 students in our district is in moderate high to high need of emotional distress. Suicide, 1 in 8 students reported that they had either a plan or had attempted suicide in the last, I can't remember what the time frame was, 12 months. So we have some students that really are in need. These programs and these partners are doing a tremendous job of that intervention. But this other program, so to your point, we're working on going directly into the classroom and providing some of those supports and services. Hopefully you'll be hearing more about that. I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. Please give them a round of applause. As each of them said, some of them with their magic wand, what they would love to have is involvement from you individually or your companies. Please feel free to contact them. Also, Oklahoma City Public Schools Foundation has on their website other ways that your companies can get involved. Thank you so much for your attention on this issue, and hope you have a wonderful afternoon.